Hello and welcome to our Proud to Play Wear It Purple Day stream. We're here today with Liam and Simone from Climbing Cuties and the climbing community. We're here today talking about keeping the conversation going, the challenges and in inclusive spaces, what the future of inclusive spaces are, and how we can sort of bring people into inclusive spaces and participate in sport. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of our land, the Wurundjeri people, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders, past and present, and Aboriginal elders of other communities who might be tuning in or watching. Liam and Simone, welcome. Welcome to Wear It Purple Day. Thank you for being with us. I'll just get Liam, if you want to go first, to talk about yourself and how you've sort of been involved in the climbing community and so on.
I'm Liam. I'm 22, living in Melbourne/Naarm. Use they, them. So I started climbing with Simone about December last year. And not long after that, we kept seeing climbing cuties popping up on social medias. And we decided, after just being like, should we do it? Should we do it? We just jumped in and went to an event, and we've just been getting kind of more involved in the climbing scene in general, been taking over our lives, as well as climbing cuties, social events and trips and stuff like that. So, yeah.
And Simone?
Yeah, kind of the same story, really. I'm 20 years old. I use they, them pronouns. I also live in Naarm. Funnily enough. So I've been climbing since December. We found out about the cuties, and we really rapidly progressed from being newbies to getting outside, and climbing has kind of become our life.
Yeah.
Sport can really do that when people sort of find community in sport and find people that sort of you have a link to that isn't necessarily everything in common, but you have a common ground and you're meeting new people and different people. That can really be something that's really engaging and great for mental health and physical health, which we're all about here. What do young trans and gender diverse people need to engage safely and happily in sport?
I guess I'll go first. I think what really needs to happen is there needs to be visible spaces for trans and gender diverse people to actually feel welcome, gyms actively having posters up, hosting LGBT friendly events, having people who work there who are queer as well would be really helpful, just to know that you're not alone and there's people out there who look like you and who are who are the same as you and who also want to participate. And I think it's really good that around Melbourne we've got a lot of our climbing gyms are really good with that. Most of them are partnered with the cuties and host lots of queer friendly meetups and events, so that's been really helpful.
Yeah, I know that Blockhouse has done quite a bit. I've been meaning to get down to one of the Blockhouse gyms and experience, I guess.
You should. It's my favorite gym. They're so good.
Yeah, I follow a few of them, and I follow some of them in Sydney, and the work that Climbing Cuties has sort of done with them has been really good. Liam, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I feel kind of the same. Just mainly I feel like a lot of people are too concerned with kind of oh, I don't want to go to this gym and make a political decision, but oh, I don't want everything to be political, but I kind of don't really feel that strongly about businesses that choose not to take a stance, because that might be not getting into politics, but I find that in and of itself is a really political stance to take, that you're kind of, you know, well off or in that position to not want to take a political stance. So I think it's kind of important for businesses to show support for people in the LGBT community and First Nations people, displaced people, whatever's going on. There's always ways that businesses can be doing more, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I find that it's probably a common experience that I find businesses that take a stance on something, it may not need to be everything, but if they're showing that they want to support people as opposed to
Yeah.
denying people or letting others deny people, then that just makes a huge difference. And you see it all around, like in the US, even like fast food restaurants and stuff like a Chick-fil-A who is against sort of LGBT and stuff. So, like that. And that is a big shift I think that we're seeing, is that businesses don't have to take a stance, but simply sitting by and just letting something go is often seen as a sign as unwelcoming, or just not really engaged with the community.
And especially for vulnerable people, if the businesses that might be sitting on the fence or not really taking a stance, they might feel uneasy, not sort of know if they're welcome in this place, if people are sneering at them or looking down on them, or anything like that. So it's like not really kind of making a safe place for people like that.
I think as well, like the more places are really active and really visible about their support, like the more normal it's going to be, and like a little bit of a domino effect, and like I hope to see that it's really common among lots of businesses in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. We've obviously, everyone's been in COVID lockdowns, everyone's not been able to get to their climbing gyms or even sporting grounds. How did you keep engaged with the LGBTIQ community, and how did you keep active during lockdown?
Well, we were spending heaps of time until recent at the Footscray Boulder Wall, and talking to people down there. But obviously that's not a thing anymore because all the playgrounds and that are closed. Really, like online, just trying to talk to people and that type of stuff is kind of all there is going at the moment. But like fitness and stuff around. But I suppose that is a bit of a barrier to entry, which kind of sucks about the lockdown.
I think it's a really difficult question to answer, like just because for climbing especially, like the best way to get your training in is to go and climb. And because that's so unavailable, it becomes really difficult. And like so much of climbing is the social aspect, like going to the boulder wall and like working out your problems with all the other people that are there.
Just talking to people.
So it's been a really tricky hurdle to overcome. But I think like Facebook events like this one, and there's a couple of gyms who are running like live yoga Zoom stuff like that. And I think even just showing up on a Zoom meeting and getting to see like other people's faces on the screen is like really important. It's the same like effect that you get when you're calling a family member or a friend. Just knowing that there's like other people that actually exist is really helpful.
I think it's hard to get motivation somehow. Like I live in a small apartment and I'd love a gym. But it's not happening. And I know that Lauren from Proud Player and Bowie has sort of released a series of videos that we have on our YouTube page about not using equipment, doing a lot of body weight exercises with limited space as well. So just your body space, because I think that's a big barrier. Like that was in the initial lockdowns, that was a big barrier for me, is going, well, I don't have much space, and I'm kind of taking up my whole lounge room if I'm laying down or something, and I don't have equipment. Like, what do I do? And it's not comfortable. But I think, as you said, following those sort of online yoga sessions and mindfulness sessions and exercise sessions like that enable people. But also, I think as lockdown has sort of moved along, people I think are a lot more fatigued.
Definitely.
I think like back when the very first lockdown happened last year, I feel like the live event thing was really popular. And since then I've sort of seen like quite a strong decline in that. I think people weren't expecting it to last as long as it has. But I think
people were almost like motivated by it at the start, and we're like, yeah, I got this time to do this, you know, I'm gonna do XYZ, and you know, blah 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 blah. And now it's just kind of still looming over us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think even projects to keep yourself engaged are a little bit different as well. So like you've got the fatigue, but we're doing a series of, well, this one we'll see, but we're doing a series of smaller lockdowns now where when we were in the really big one, you could kind of go, I'm going to, you know, in my case anyway, I'm going to like learn to paint or plant a garden or like, you know, do these things, these projects that you just had time for all of a sudden. But when you're in the smaller ones, it's like, well, this might be 2 weeks, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, why bother, you know?
Yeah. You're not going to go out and buy gym equipment, or you're not going to go out and buy, you know, something. And, you know, you're not going to, you know, if you're organizing an event with friends or in a swimming group, but you might be back in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's the uncertainty and the fatigue of, well, you know, let's wait and see.
I think it's been really hard on a lot of people in regards to that. I know it's been really tricky for us, like not having the sense of stability that
or routine.
Yeah, or routine as well. And like we've been trying to just keep as active as we can in our like tiny cold house. We like do our little like workout together in the lounge room in front of the TV.
Warm up the house through body.
Yep.
Save on heating. Yeah. We're going to back in time a little bit, before lockdown, before, you know, a lot of things. And school sport is one time where a lot of people in our community drop out of sport altogether. I don't think a lot of people realize that happened because it's like a really subtle effect, and people at the time might not be out, so you just assume they're leaving sport for whatever reason.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you wish you'd sort of experienced differently at the school sport level, or like in your teen sort of years at sporting?
I wish I experienced everything differently, actually. But I think just having gender separations in sport class was really like kind of awkward for me. And I was one of the people that you mentioned that dropped out of sport, and I just didn't show up at all. And like going to PE class, I never really felt safe either. And even things like the whole change room stuff, like bathrooms and change rooms have always been a pretty precarious place for queer people to exist in. And like, I think even just letting students show up in their sport uniform and not having to go through that awkward change room thing. And like, yeah, I could go on forever and ever, but like adequate education around the fact that like queer people actually exist, because I had no education of that at all. And I think people sort of just looked at me really funny and they're like, oh, what's this like person doing? And I just wish there was more support for us, because I would have loved to have participated as a teenager.
Pretty much I pretty much agree. Like I always found it really jarring that I was kind of like made to throw dodgeballs at girls during like sports. But I think my single biggest gripe, was mainly just kind of like the lack of support from a lot of sport teachers, where it's like, if you weren't kind of like the 5 boys that were good at sport, like the PE teacher didn't really care. And I've talked to a lot of people and they kind of feel the same. Like it was just kind of like a hangout for the few good people who had been doing like soccer for 10 years or something. And then everyone else was just kind of there to like entertain them, I guess.
Yeah, because I grew up in a small country town. My year level was about 100 people or something like that. And I had that experience too, like just I was a teenager and far more unsure of myself back then. But even as like a cis male, I remember being back then and feeling really uncomfortable in the environment, and sort of like, I think it's an experience that a lot of people go through, that like you're getting changed, kind of turning away from everyone. And
like, the lesbian, look at me.
Exactly. Like, I think it's a shared experience that everyone sort of goes through. but yeah, I sort of share the same experience of unfortunately, I think it seems to always be the loudest people. So,
Yeah.
or the popular people at, you know, the perceptions of the time at high school. So that sort of compounds, I think, a lot of the experience of not good enough or something like that. And I agree. I think the focus on just awareness and education and
Yeah.
that, you know, sort of bathroom being naked, wear your sport uniform, like, you know, sort of there's simple things that shouldn't really matter. As in shouldn't really matter to the people making the policy. Like why does it matter if you're in your school sport uniform or whatever? Like, you know, it doesn't matter. So if you know, we've got this sort of shared experience, we've got people who have dropped out of sport in high school, or maybe they're looking towards a new sport. What would you say to those people who are looking to re-engage the sporting community but have hesitation due to experiences like the ones in high school?
Probably just get out there and just give it a go. Like, I know it's like a bit of a cliche piece of advice, but like, it's really just like the best thing you can do for yourself is just kind of give it a go. But I know from learning an instrument and like learning like climbing and stuff like that, the best thing someone ever told me, I think I read it actually, was like, people will notice if you're new or not doing good, or people will notice if you're doing really good, but nobody really cares. Like, if you're not doing good, like people will notice that you're new, but nobody cares, or nobody's going to think less of you. So it's like,
absolutely.
it's really just one of the little monkey brain things that we still have, that we don't want to be seen like being bad at something.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think just like getting up and doing it. And like for me, I had such an awful experience with sport growing up. And the first few times I went climbing, I was like, I loved it, but I was pretty like kind of scared of just being perceived in general. And like having a friend with me and like finding the cuties and just going to those meetups too, where like they specify on all the events, like all skill levels are welcome.
Definitely.
And like, yeah, just sort of getting over the fear of being like, I'm going to suck at this when I first start doing it. And it's going to be a couple of months of kind of sucking at it, but then you grow and get better. And I think, get a friend, go on Facebook, go do some stuff. It'll change your life. It changed mine. So
the thing I'd like to say as well about like maybe like some more social events and stuff like that, like what Climbing Cuties do, is that there's heaps of people on like both ends of the spectrum. Like there's people who are extremely good and people who are brand new. Like one of the cuties, Grace, who's actually overseas at the minute doing like at a competition, is a QT, and like there's other people like that. But like that it doesn't matter if you're good or not, but people just sort of like encourage you if you're like, they see that you're like putting in work or like effort, which I think was something that was kind of lacking at school sports, where it was like, I just think that like effort should be rewarded. Which I find.
I think everyone, I think the big difference is that in school sport or something, you're pushed into a, well, not even a sport, like activities, where when you choose a sport and you say, I'm going to give this a go, no one cares, because like you've got this one uniting thing that is like, we all love climbing, like that's why we're here, and no one cares if you're bad because they've been there. Climbing's a sport, like as I mentioned before the interview, I play ice hockey, where you know no one in Australia can skate. like you know, by just playing ice hockey for 7 years, I'm probably better than 98% of Australia. like just the ability to skate full stop. Like, you know, and climbing is probably a similar thing where you're learning these skills, and just by being in there a couple of months and learning these skills, you're probably better at the sport than the majority of, you know, everyone in Australia. And that's a scale thing. You're learning skills. You're being taught. You're part of a community. You're making friends. you know, that's the important thing. And I think the other thing that you touched on was um there's clubs that have like had more social events, and speaking with clubs and doing a lot of outreach uh lately for Proud to Play, um COVID has really shown a lot of clubs the importance of the social side, and I think that's really good for newbies. That, you know, it's like have a bit of a climb but make all these friends, and you know the climb sort of brings you together, but it's the friends and the support that there is actually what keeps people engaged.
Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely. Definitely just going to like the meetups and having people cheering you on. Like, I feel like just having those voices there to uplift you and being able to uplift other people in the community as well. I think, yeah, you're definitely right. The social part's really important.
Yeah. Leading on from that, how has being part of a sporting community benefited you? I guess this could be answered like you sort of touched on the sporting element, but I guess just in life, like, is it helped confidence, has it helped engagement, social skills? Like, how's it being part of that community really given benefit to you?
Yeah, I think like all the sporting stuff aside,
Yeah.
just knowing like it's definitely been quite a bolster to my social skills, knowing that you can just kind of go up to people and like talk to them.
Yeah.
That sounds really rudimentary, but like just being able to approach people like within the meetups has just helped me talk to more people in my daily life as well. And I think it's been such a huge confidence builder for me as well, like getting to go climbing wherever I want, like regardless of whether or not I'm like at a meetup or something like that. I feel like I can still perform without any of the anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I just feel so much more confident now that I'm like active all the time because of it too. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely had a really big impact on like my overall lifestyle and fitness. So it's just been like astronomical for me.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel pretty much the same. Like found like so many more friends through climbing cuties, like social events and stuff like that than I ever did in the gym.
Yeah.
And I feel so much more like part of the social and the community aspect, because like when we used to go to the gym, I would kind of just head down at the ground and like that kind of thing. But like whenever I'm like bouldering or like at a like the boulder wall, which is for people that might not know, is basically just like an outdoor kind of space thing. Like pretty much every time I'm there, I'm like having a chat to people and like you know, like making new friends and stuff. So it's like such a big change for me in my life as someone who's quite introverted and doesn't really like making new friends and that type of thing. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah. And I guess there's still challenges in any sport. There's still challenges in inclusive spaces. What would you like to see, you know, looking forward into the future? We went into the past with school, and now looking into the future, 5 years in the future. We're all out of COVID and everything's wonderful. What would you like to see as a normal in just not climbing, but sport and inclusive spaces? What would you like to see as normal in that sort of 5 year period?
I reckon definitely lots of queer people leading the conversation and like leading instructions, like just seeing, yeah, more queer instructors, I think, and having people who are in like pretty, what's the word, like management position, like higher positions.
Leadership.
Yeah, leadership positions.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, yeah, definitely having visible people like that and being like a common thing and not just like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah. What else? Probably like a lot more adequate education in regards to like the LGBT community, like in schools. Because like the only thing I ever got taught about like the queer community was like gay people exist. That's it. Like box ticked, you know, like if people are actually educated and they like, I don't know, there should be more culture built around like respect. Yeah.
First time I learned about like what a transgender person was when I was 15 and Karl Stefanovic said like the T slur on
Yeah.
national TV.
And that's not how it should be.
Yeah.
Like that's not how like kids should have to grow up and like learn about like the community, you know, and then like
Yeah.
I want stories like that to not exist. I don't want that to be happening, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Like I'm not really aware what a modern sexual education or sexuality education curriculum looks like in schools, but I was very much the same. And I'm older than, than yourselves, so like it doesn't, between you and I, it doesn't sound like it's changed too much. I think that, you know, going on our theme of keeping the conversation going, which is our Wear It Purple Day theme, I think that that's really wraps it up, is that there hasn't been much, like people see a lot of progress with marriage equality and, you know, inclusive spaces, and we're getting more non-binary, trans, LGBT, general representation in sport. But as you said, it is still novel when you see someone there, it's like it's a novelty, and there's still a lot to do there. You know, even like I said, Blockhouse and the other gyms doing that, that's still an exception. That level of support is still an exception when you look at the whole scene. Yeah, and that's why people talking about this, people having conversations like we are now, people going up to their climbing gym or their venue and being like, how can we be more inclusive? And starting those steps is definitely the path to get there. It's a very grassroots sort of movement. There's a lot of awareness. It's people getting people in leadership, like you said. It's, you know, people just participating and increasing participation. The more participation we've got, the bigger the community comes, and, you know, so on. It's all a big puzzle, but I think that we're heading there. That's the utopia, you know, just to increase, and hopefully that happens. It's been nice to have you chatting to us for Wear It Purple Day. Is there anything that you'd like to add for the end?
I just wanted to say, I just kind of would hope in the future for more opportunities for neurodivergent people and LGBT people. Someone like myself who lives with like autism, there hasn't really been that many opportunities in Melbourne, especially not with the lockdown and stuff like that. So I just hope, I suppose, future generations have it a bit easier, I guess.
I think at the end of the day, like there is, like you said, a lot of work that needs to be done, and I think there needs to be like tangible, achievable goals that like both people like Liam and I, just like people in the community and also people who are in like higher positions of power, need to be like working towards actively.
I think that touches on another thing that I'll sort of wrap us up with, which is, although that we've got to focus on LGBTIQ community, inclusion doesn't stop at LGBTIQ.
Absolutely.
There's people with disabilities, neurodivergent people, even sort of, I guess, women representation and trans
absolutely.
and binary in general. Inclusion's a big umbrella, and we've got to be doing better at all fronts, not just one front,
Absolutely.
to improve that experience. Well, thank you for your time once again. We'll wrap it up here. Hopefully people watching this really got something valuable out of it, and keep the conversation going. Happy Wear It Purple Day. And yeah, if anyone's interested in climbing Cuties is on Facebook. They're everywhere. The website's climbingcuties.com.au.
I think so.
Google them, they'll be there. I forgot to write down what the end of the website was, but if you Google Climbing Cuties, that's QTS, not cuties, they will come up. And yeah, I encourage anyone out there to get along when things are back open and have a climb, because it's a great organization. It's very inclusive. Anyway, we're up there. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.